Whether it's raining or the sun is shining, the climate in Cities Skylines 2 is going to change how we play this game forever. All the way from the planning stages right up through to the point that you finish a city. Well, who am I kidding? I've been playing this game for 8 years and I've never once finished a city, but I'm sure you will. I might not, but you probably will.
Life in a thriving city can be a whirlwind. Sunny moments of joy and laughter can cloud over as stormier times roll in. It's impossible to forecast. Luckily, the weather in your city will be more predictable, as each map has a unique climate with reliable seasonal patterns.
So each map having its own unique climate is interesting. It's going to mean that you're looking a little bit more in depth into your map choice before you go ahead and choose the map that you're going to be playing on. You might want a map where summers are a little bit longer or winters are a little bit more mild. And that's not really something I had considered. I hadn't really thought that was gonna be a thing in Cities Skylines 2, but that sounds like it's what we're dealing with. And in my experience so far, that does seem to be the case. And honestly, what that gets me excited about is what different map creators are gonna be able to do when the time comes for people to get their hands on the game and start making maps. I think it'll be really interesting to see if it's possible to create a map where, I don't know, it is snowing a lot. That seems like it would be Cities Skylines 2 on hard mode, but I guess we'll have to wait and see what exactly happens with that a little bit later on in the year when the game comes out.
Maps in Cities Skylines 2 are inspired by real-world locations, so your city's climate will be unique to that place. The climate dictates how each of the 4 seasons looks and feels. As one season gives way to the next, the length of the day will change. The amount of sunshine and cloud cover will too. Temperatures will vary, and so will precipitation.
Now, speaking about the overall climate impacting the seasons, it will also impact, or rather the seasons will impact your day-night cycle. So you might have a little bit more nighttime during winter. You're going to have more daylight during summer. And obviously during different times of the year, you're going to have more sunshine in general, or more rain if it happens to be, fall or spring or whatever it might be. Again, this is all stuff that's going to be impacting the different services around your city. If it is raining a lot in the fall or the autumn, you're going to have to deal with the fact that people might crash their car. If it is winter and it's snowing, you're going to have to get the snow off the roads or people are going to crash their car. I'm noticing a trend here. Basically, the weather makes the roads a little bit treacherous, and I'm honestly here for it. I kind of like that kind of chaos. I think it's going to keep things exciting, especially, look, the amount of times I have seen Sims catapult their vehicles off of highways. It's not happened that much, to be completely honest with you, but every time it does, I cherish those moments because it's usually just one car. It's usually just one guy driving a smart car, and it's funny. It shouldn't be. It's horrible, but it is kind of funny.
Why is this so important? Well, weather will impact your city in different ways. Rainy, snowy, and sun-soaked days can pile pressure on your electricity grid. Same for city services, which will need to respond. Like in winter, road maintenance crews power up plows to clear the road network of snow before it causes collisions. If city services don't respond in time or do what needs to be done, accident rates can rise with the knock-on effect of overstretching emergency crews.
Now, I've already touched upon some of this stuff in that last little section about the guy throwing his car off of a highway, but it is important to stress that weather will impact the flow of your city in general. Winter, for example, is going to require more road maintenance vehicles. We actually saw road maintenance vehicles transition into snowplows in my last Cities Skylines 2 gameplay video, which is a really cool detail, and that's an extra level of detail that the game honestly didn't need. I don't think anyone would have necessarily been like, my God, there's no snowplows. This would have been my game of the year, but there are none, so it's not. But they did that, and it does provide that extra level of immersion, and it's a nice little visual cue to let you know that road maintenance is working a little bit harder during the winter. And if it doesn't work harder, you are going to have, well, more traffic accidents, and then you are going to have a greater need for things like the police to go out and actually clear the traffic accidents, or your hospitals might start to fill up a little bit. So there is a knock-on effect to not looking after your roads properly. As well as that, you have to factor in the fact that people are going to be needing more electricity to heat their homes. So are you going to be able to keep up with that? Is that something you're going to be able to manage? Do you have enough power generation to see you through the winter? Do you have enough road maintenance to see you through the winter? That's an interesting dynamic, and that's another depth to the simulation that I really appreciate.
Seasonal weather also affects how people move around your city and where they spend their time. Parks will draw crowds when the sun is out, while restaurants, movie theaters, and other indoor spots will get busy fast when it rains. Of course, extreme seasonal weather can turn life upside down in a flash.
Speaking of an in-depth simulation and things being a little bit extra, and this is another one of those things that when you say it out loud, of course it makes sense. It makes sense that when it's cold and snowing, your Sims are going to want to go indoors and go see a movie or go to a cafe or go shopping or whatever it is they're going to go do. They're going to do it inside because it's, pouring it down outside. But then the summer comes around and they think, you know what? I'm going to go out and enjoy this weather. I'm going to go to a park and I'm going to sit outside and have an ice cream. I'm going to walk the dog. I'm going to take the kids to the swings and the sandbox and all that good stuff. It's just, it makes sense. Of course, when you say it out loud, it makes sense. Of course they do that. But it's now part of the simulation. It's now a thing that they do. Your Sim's behavior is going to change through the year as the seasons themselves change through the year.
You can help your city prepare for natural disasters with disaster control systems, but there's no stopping them. Your city might experience disasters with a lowercase d. That's when disasters cause traffic accidents that clog road networks. Disasters with a capital D are a whole lot more serious. They impact city services and the local economy in the short and long term.
Now, I do like that road accidents or traffic accidents are sort of considered a low-level disaster, because that is essentially what they are. They will clog your road networks and they will slow a lot of things down until they are cleared by road maintenance and police and all that good stuff. So I like that that's a thing. I like that that's the label that we're putting on those, because at the best of times, the best way to describe my traffic in City Skylines has been as a disaster. So I feel recognized, I feel seen, and I appreciate that. When it comes to the bigger disasters, you have a lot of things to deal with. You have the initial stage, which is the destruction of buildings and the loss of life. You have the second stage, which is the impact on the emergency services, including cemeteries and crematoriums. And then you're going to have a long-term impact because, well, you've just lost a bunch of people and a bunch of buildings, and demand is going to rise in certain places and fall in others. So essentially, that's your recovery stage. Is your city going to be prepared for it? Probably. Is my city going to be prepared for it? Probably not.
As a city builder, it's up to you to help your city bounce back when nature is a bit extra. But for the most part, seasonal changes will be predictable. Winter will run its course and give way to spring, just as night will follow day. The day and night cycle connects to the calendar. When a day-night cycle ends, one calendar month will have passed. So every 24 hours, a month of the year will have come and gone. The seasons will change after 3 cycles. And after 12 cycles, it's time to start all over again. The citizens of your city will experience life's highs and lows like the shifting seasons. Good times and bad will come and go. By building your city's unique climate, you can create the backdrop for life lived to its fullest.
And so this concludes the feature highlights portion of this video. I do want to take a second before we get into the developer insights, as per usual, to talk about a couple of things. First and foremost, I've seen it asked in a bunch of different places on Reddit, on forums, on social media, whether or not the day-night cycle can be switched off. Mechanically, It cannot. It is always there. But visually, you can absolutely switch it off. Basically, the clock is going to tell you that it's, 11 p.m., but the sun is still up because you visually turned it off. That's essentially because the passage of time in the 24-hour sense of time is a part of the simulation. That is something that the game is running, that is going to determine the behavior of your Sims, where they're going, where they're coming from. That is based on the time of day, and so that part of the simulation cannot be disabled. The visual part absolutely can. Now, when it comes to seasons, it's a different story. You cannot disable seasons, not even visually. They are always going to be there. And again, that is because that is a part of the simulation in this game. The change in the weather is gonna determine it, it's gonna influence a change in your city. Now, I've seen that be a bit of a controversial thing with Cities Skylines 2, and I can understand why. I do sort of get it. Not everyone loved the snowfall maps in Cities Skylines 1, but for the most part, the drawbacks, the negatives on that were optional. The bonuses on that were optional. The gameplay side of Snowfall was essentially optional. In Cities Skylines 2, it's not, but it's not so much something that you just tack on to the side. It is a core part of the simulation, because it's not just a case of running heat pipes to everybody. It is going to change the day-to-day behavior of your Sims. It is going to impact certain services in different ways. You are going to see less people going to the park and more people going to a cafe. You are going to see snowplows instead of like pickup truck looking things. It does change a lot of things, and so seasons cannot be disabled even visually. In all honesty, I don't mind that. I don't mind not being able to disable those mechanically. A more in-depth simulation is what I've wanted in Cities Skylines for me since day one. I've always said the first game was more of a city painter and sandbox type game versus a building and management game. Cities Skylines 2 is a city builder and city management game. You can absolutely build something beautiful, and especially with, sandbox mode and unlock everything, but when it comes to the core gameplay, the simulation is the core of everything.
Today's topic is climate and seasons. Each map has its own climate, and the climate is based on latitude and longitude. That means that there are differences in the length of the day, weather conditions, etc. Seasons affect the weather, and they are different in each climate. Some climates have distinct seasons, and in some climates the seasons blend more together.
So this first point of the developer insights essentially calls back to the first point of the feature highlights portion of the video, essentially saying that your seasons and the differences between them, or the lack of differences between them, is once again going to be based on the climate. Certain climates will have milder winters, milder summers. Other climates will have much harsher winters and, much warmer summers. So the impact on your services like electricity and obviously road maintenance are either going to be greater or lower or average based on the climate of the map that you pick.
There are three basic types of climate: temperate, continental, and polar. Fun fact is that many maps' climates are based on real-life locations.
Do you have a favorite climate to play on?
No. I cannot pick my favorite climate because they are all so great.
Solid.
It can be sunny, it can be rainy, or even snowy. Each map features unique weather, and it changes with the simulation. The weather will affect on citizens' behavior. For example, they will prefer indoor activities while it's raining. When it's sunny, they prefer outdoor activities.
And expanding upon my previous point a little bit further, if we take into account the 3 different climate types, that being temperate, continental, and polar, we can assume that something like a polar climate is going to have a lot of your sims indoors a lot more than something like a temperate or even continental climate. I'll be completely honest with you. In all my years of playing all the video games, every single one of them that's ever come out, I don't think I've ever looked up the definition of a temperate climate. I sort of have an idea of what it is, but in the same way that when I play The Sims and someone's like, oh, that style is this, or that architectural design trait is from this sort of school of thought, I just nod along and go, yes, it is. Absolutely, you're right. So if someone tells me that something is a temperate climate, I tend to just go, well, the grass is green and the trees are greenish, so yes, you're probably right.
The weather also affects on energy consumption. For example, when the weather is warm, the citizens need ACs, and when it's cold, the buildings need heating.
So obviously we have talked about a lot of these things already. We've talked about the fact that the weather will determine the energy consumption, specifically, people needing to heat their homes during winter. This is something I experienced in my second City Skylines 2 gameplay video, and it did require me to finally get rid of the basic small coal power plant. And once again, this kind of system provides just so much depth to the gameplay itself. You don't just sort of build something and forget. It's not a set and forget type deal anymore. And that's something that people are either going to love or hate. Honestly, I love it. I like kind of having to come back to different parts of my city and look at it and go, okay, this worked for a while, but the city is growing. We now need to evolve what we've built here and change it for something that's going to let the city grow further. That makes sense. In City Skylines 1, I mean, you sort of did the same thing, right? Except it wasn't influenced by the weather. It was just, hey, I built that power plant an hour ago. My population has doubled since. I need to just build another one. Whereas in City Skylines 2, you might replace it because the power plants are huge, or you might rely on importing power, but that's going to cost you more money. Again, it's giving you options. It's putting power in the hands of the players. It's giving you more agency to do the things that you want to do. And it's going to keep you coming back and actively taking part in the different parts of managing and running your city from one day to the next and one season to the next.
The rush hours are based on citizens' schedules. All citizens now follow the schedule. In the mornings, they go to work and school, and in the evening, they come back home, and that creates the rush hours.
So I'm going to be honest, I've talked about rush hours in City Skylines 2 before. I wasn't sure they were actually a thing. I was assuming they were a thing, but I wasn't 100% sure. I don't think they were mentioned in the traffic episode. They might have been. It's been a minute since I recorded that and watched it, so I have no idea. But I do like that this is essentially confirmation that they do exist. Your people are going to get up in the morning and they're going to go to work, they're going to go to school, they're going to go to the park or the cafe or whatever they do. And then in the evening, they go home. So you are going to see an increase of traffic during rush hours. And again, that's going to put a bit of a strain on your roads. It means road maintenance being kept, good. Keeping your roads in good condition is going to mean that the rush hours go that little bit smoother. And let's be honest, we've all been stuck in traffic. Having a nice, smooth rush hour is just a dream.
Ah, amazing. Natural disasters are big weather events that affect on your city disastrous ways.
In disasters.
Hey! Why in? Can AI put that in? There are 3 types of natural disasters in the base game. There are forest fires, hailstorms, and tornadoes. I don't have any favorite natural disasters because I hate them all because they ruin my city.
That was amazing, yes.
So while we're talking about natural disasters, I want this to be the question that we all take away from this video. Did you play City Skylines 1 with natural disasters on or off? Because I always played with them off unless I was doing a scenario or the DLC had just come out. But I mean, in the broader sense, are you a natural disaster enjoyer? Or are you someone that, like me, is, I appreciate that they exist. I just wasn't a fan. I just wasn't. It was nice that my first look video at that DLC has actually gone on to become one of the most popular videos on the channel. So it's not all bad, but it's just, I don't know. It's not that I don't think they had a cool challenge. I'm the type of person that doesn't want to see massive chunks of my city torn apart in an instant when I spent hours upon hours building those chunks of the city and trying to make them look good. Like I said, the added challenge, it's good. And this time around, it is an added challenge because, again, you have to deal with the buildings being destroyed. You have to deal with an impact on the population. But I don't know. I'm going to give them a chance. I'm going to hope that they're good. I'm going to hope that they don't happen too often. And I'm also going to hope that I can turn them off. And if I can't, I'm really going to hope that someone makes a mod that lets me turn them off.
Traffic accidents, building fires, and all natural disasters are logged in the event journal. Thank you for watching, and next week we will go through economy.
So before we go straight into the conclusion for today, I do want to talk about the event journal because honestly, I think it is 50-50 on whether or not I just forget about that thing or I turn it into an essential tool for tracking problem areas in my city. I guess time will tell. October 19th is the embargo date for Cities Skylines II. That is the point at which I can post whatever I want and stream whatever I want without limitation. Obviously, there has been a third Cities Skylines gameplay video that's gone up on YouTube on pretty much everyone else's channel. There wasn't one on my channel for a few reasons, health stuff, just life stuff. I was planning on one, I was working on one, but health and life just got the better of me, and I didn't get a third gameplay video out on the 11th, so it's fine. It's all right. I'm not really, it would have been nice, but these things happen. Anyway, when it comes to the climate in Cities Skylines 2, like I've said, I think it's obvious. I like the extra challenge. I like the extra depth on the simulation. I like that it makes things a bit more dynamic. And I like that it's going to fluctuate depending on the time of year. I like that you are going to have to prepare for winters and you're going to have to prepare for summers. You're going to have to deal with rainy autumns or springs or whatever it might be. I like that there are times of year that you're going to see your Sims in parks, and there are times of year when you're not going to see that because they're indoors. It makes sense. It does. It's one of those things that just makes sense. It's going to lead to a more in-depth simulation. It does, in my experience, lead to a more in-depth simulation, and it's just more interesting. It's not just, changing the visuals of the game for the sake of it. It is changing the visuals of the game. There are, in fact, autumn colored leaves now. There weren't for a while, but they are going to be a thing at launch. And the snow has gotten better. It's not just visual, is my point. That's what I like about it. So I don't think I'm going to get bored of it. I think that's where I'm coming at this from. I'm not going to get bored of the snow because it's not there all the time. I'm not going to take the beautiful colored leaves for granted because they're not there all the time. As soon as it starts transitioning into autumn, I'm going to be like, oh my God, the leaves are coming back. And then the snow comes in and it's, oh my God, the snow's coming back. And then by the time the snow's going away, I've just started to get sick of it. And it's like, oh my God, the grass is coming back. So I think that's how I'm looking at it. I like the challenge. I like the visuals. It is building on what we know from Cities Skylines 1. And really, I've said it a million times already. I will say it again. That's what I've wanted a sequel to do. Build on what we know and love and make it better. And that's what I think this is doing. So that's going to do us for today. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. It has been an absolute pleasure as always. And as always, I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.